Welcome back to the Intuition Incubator. Today, I am chatting with someone I have known and worked with for years, Alexa Brascetta. She's a CFP with over 2 decades of experience and the founder of Aligned Wealth Strategies. After losing her dad to suicide, Alexa brings empathy, honesty, and a deeply human approach to a world that often focuses only on numbers. In this episode, we talk about grief, clarity, alignment, and how life shakes us awake to what really matters. I'm so happy to have you here, Alexa. Welcome.
Could not be more thrilled. I've never looked forward to something more, truthfully.
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
Yes.
So, we just had a really wonderful catch up. Um,
Mhm.
Everything that's been going on since we saw each other last, but we've actually known each other a very, very long time.
I can't even remember when we first met at this point,
I
but
know.
back in the, early 2000s, it feels like.
It feels like a long time ago. Yeah. But tell us a little bit about you recently wrote a chapter in a book that you shared with me, and I really found it really moving about your dad.
Mhm.
And I wonder if, maybe you can start by talking about that. It was really a powerful story, and I think is a really testament to resiliency and moving through the world with intuition. And, I'd
Yeah.
love for you to share with the audience what that story.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know, and you mentioned that I have 2 decades of financial services experience, and it started because I was working with my dad. I started when I was 14, so it's now 23 years. 23 long years. And I wrote this chapter because of this story and working with my dad. It's such a huge part of who I am. Truthfully, his loss changed me. I say at a cellular level. I kind of look at like it's like before Christ, after Christ, in time. Like it's with dad, post dad time in my life. But I was 25 working for him full time after graduating with a finance degree, and he had always been, a deeply depressed person that he hid very well, but he and I had such a very good relationship. I was aware of it even though others didn't know. And August 13th, 2013, he took his own life. It finally became too much for him, and it was when the phrase, like, "The rug was pulled out from underneath you," like, I've never felt such a truer statement, and then I was falling. But now I'm in charge of his business. My mom has no idea what to do, like, I wasn't allowed to fall, and so, um, in this chapter, and the book is Financial Trendsetters too, and it's, 12 other women, including myself, in our stories. My whole story is kind of, moving through that grief and what I did post his loss. I was 25, took over a multi-million dollar life insurance and broker dealer region. I was in charge of Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona all at once. They did split that off, and they gave me this big job at 25 because of who my dad was, what my last name was. And I did that for 5 years in trying to hit their targets. And I would assume as this conversation unfolds today, my story and kind of intuition is I typically have to get smacked in the face by the universe in a very big way to listen to it. But the birth of my child, my first daughter, she was probably the catalyst for me finally listening to what my intuition was telling me, and that I wasn't meant to be doing this. I was there because I thought I was honoring my father's legacy, and the money was really good. And I liked working with people and being in financial services. But when I had her, took 3 months off and then hit all of their sales targets that they gave to me, and I started off slow for the year. They're calling me up, and I probably maybe could have sued because it's felt very like discriminatory. Like, I'm the first time you ever dealt with maternity leave in this position, and someone starts off slow and now you're all worried. So I quit in a meeting with my very controlling manager. And then I went and found a new path. And in that, I really tried to listen to, well, what did I like? What did I not like? I like financial services. So I tried to lean into what my intuition was telling me and why I didn't like it. And so that's where I ended up landing on being an advisor.
Yeah. And I met you that way, right? Like my
Hmm.
husband worked with your dad.
Yeah.
So that's how we first actually met.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because one of the things that, I've always loved about you and I think you about me is just that place that you were in where you the way you just put it was you said, "I didn't have the option of
Mhm.
falling." And I think that so many women are in that position, or at least think that they're in that position,
Yeah.
where they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, and we tend to do that. I know I did, that was my story, and
Mhm.
I think that was, a big attraction. In fact, I remember writing a blog once that I said something about, like, I'm not the kind of person that's, like, into self-love, blah, and you commented on it, you were like, "Yeah," like, because we're just conditioned into this way
Yeah.
of that, we have to have all the answers, we have to, and with that comes a very controlling attitude and a way of controlling
Mhm.
way of being in the world, which, of course, ends up being extremely limiting in our lives. There's a right, there's a wrong, it's black and it's white, and then after a while, we kind of hit a wall, um,
Oh, yeah.
around
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So, and
I
that's kind of when our paths crossed again.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it before we started here today. Is I was like a moth to a flame when you first put out the information of how you wanted to work with women and high achieving women and helping them. And you said something in our work together that has stayed with me, and it was don't have to white knuckle your way through life. I think about it all the time and I notice it. And I think that's part of the intuition is like paying attention to when you feel yourself start doing that. But none of this work is going to be perfect. It's not linear. I'm so much more aware of when I'm out of alignment in my life. But like I'll notice it on the steering wheel. Back off, but it's kind of become a little bit of a mantra. It's like you don't have to white knuckle your way through life. So when I feel myself doing that, I'm like, okay, where do I need to shift and what is that telling me? And that's stayed with me for I don't even know how long at this point.
Yeah, that's funny, that's interesting. Yeah. So, where are some places where you've noticed that and that you really made some shifts? You made a lot of shifts in your life just in the last few years. You have this fabulous business of your own with
Hmm.
a very strong mission, very clear,
Yes. Yes.
of what that is. So, tell more about that.
Yeah. So I think it kind of goes back to the kind of honoring my father in a capacity. I joined another firm and worked for two other advisors. And I read another thing, someone called it the quiet tug, like your intuition is like the quiet tug. And I was pushing it down and not listening to it, but ultimately I was raised to be my own boss from a mentorship perspective, the jobs I've been given, the responsibilities I've always had on my shoulders. I was raised to be my own boss. So that was what my intuition was telling me was you need to go do this and you need to do it the way that feels right, ethically, morally, um, and the way you want to help people. So that's why now with my clients, we plan through the lens of their values. I have them identify the things that are most important in their life. So when their monies get out of that alignment, if they're not living in accordance with those values, we look at are these really your values? Or do we need to shift something over here? So it's a much different way of looking at your money. But I think it helps from a level of fulfillment. So it's been fun to tie the things that I've learned in the work that I've done with you and then subsequent readings myself to be able to do that. But that was probably professionally one of the biggest things. But like even with my daughter Reagan, she's, ADHD, she has hearing loss. And it's always been kind of like one thing after another with her. But from the moment she was born and all of her well visits through her first year of life, I'm like, my mom gut was like, there's something, there's something, there's something. And so I feel like I've always been chasing the ball with her. But because I'm now like listening more, I found the perfect spots for her to be, for her to get the support that she needs to have a happier life, which has been, I owe you a lot to know the ability to like feel this way and think this way and follow how I'm feeling.
It seems like that when you were telling me this, you were, because on the call before this, you were telling me how, like, the perfect situation for Reagan dropped in.
Yes.
And it's just so funny how when we just follow our intuition and we just keep following it and we don't stuff it down, the universe kind of lines up and says,
Yes.
"Here you go." And that's happened more than once for you. But it's been painful too. Like starting your own business is a
Yeah.
big deal. Like
Yes.
that's a big deal. And I
Mhm.
love so what you're saying is, I think what I heard you say when you talked about values with your clients, it's about, so if somebody's like spending all their money or something,
Mhm.
then it's not the kind of thing where you're just like, well, you're going to run out of money, but it's the kind of thing where you're like, wait a minute, maybe there's a misalignment here with how what we've talked about, how you're invested because you're wanting to do this. So let's reevaluate the values
Mhm.
and invest according to that.
Yeah. So, like, the example you just gave, if someone's spending all of their money, but family is their one of their key core values, like, it's my number one personally. If I'm spending all my money on me, then I'm not giving that back to my family and the things that we want as a unit or the goals that we have together. So that's living out of alignment. So is your family really your values? Or, financial therapy is even becoming a thing. Do I really need to send you to a financial therapist for your overspending habits? So it helps me identify those different things, but it also dictates, how we invest, where the money goes at the same time.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about what it's like to be a, breadwinning mom and have
Ooh.
all of that on your shoulders. Because I mean, it's a big deal. It's a lot of women, are in that situation more and more and more these days, and the majority. And so, how has that journey shifted from how it started out to how you manage it now and see it and understand it now?
Being a mom, like, one, my type A personality pre-kids was, like, out of control, like, everything had to be perfect, and then I had kids, and it dumbed me down, but then certain things still existed. I think feminism, for lack or better, like, for good or bad, better or worse, there's a double-edged sword there in that, like, it's been great for our progress and our abilities to have rights, like get a credit card without a man signing for it, all of that type of stuff, but it's put the weight of the world on our shoulders. So I had to be perfect at work and, never drop the ball there and always be available. And then I had to be perfect at home and I had to have this Pinterest worthy, perfectly clean house and my kids had to be excelling and blah, 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 blah. And that's so unmanageable. And that's a lot of why we started working together was I needed someone to help me realize that and say, no, that's not okay. So one of my biggest things that I do is I put my kids to bed and I don't go downstairs. I go right to my room. I get to do journaling if that's on the agenda. I get to read because I've rediscovered reading, whether, self-help kind of those types of books or, you know, fiction, but it's something I really enjoy. So I just go to my room and I do the things that I need to do for me rather than make sure my house is perfectly clean and ready for tomorrow. And has been like done wonders for my mental health. And then there's things like, okay, where do I not need to try so hard? So grocery pickup. I just do grocery pickup. I shop online and people are like, but you don't get the best produce. I'm like, what is my time worth? I don't care if they give me a smaller onion than the one I would choose. I essentially what has happened is I care so much less about things that don't matter. Like I don't care, like I have no nice things anymore. My children have destroyed them and I don't care because they're gonna if I got new things that were, better looking, all that type of stuff, I don't care. Prime Day just happened, didn't buy a single thing because I don't need anything else. Don't care. So that's, I just don't care about things that don't matter anymore, is where I've had to get to. But my clients, my kids' health and well being, taking care of my mental health, and then making sure my relationship with my husband is in balance. Those are kind of like my four pillars, and then everything else can go away.
And how did you make that leap? Because there was a time where, because the mind tells us all kinds of crazy things, and there was a time where there was a very strict internal voice saying, no, it's got to be this way. It's got to be this way. It's got to be this way. It's got to like white knuckle, like everything has to be
Yeah.
this. What happened that you were able to, at some point say, or was it just kind of like a break? Like, this is just unmanageable. Something's got to break. Like, did you write it to that? Or was it something that happened that you began to understand the difference between running your life that way and what was driving you to run your life that way versus
Mhm.
you run your life now?
I've learned that my control need is anxiety driven. So anytime I look at where am I controlling stuff, I'm like, okay, what is the underlying reason for needing to control that? But I think it was exposure therapy by like you suggesting don't clean the house, which is why I now go right to my room and I don't care. If there's some dishes in the sink, they'll get done tomorrow because we're going to use more dishes. It's going to happen. And my house is never a cesspool, but it was the exposure therapy of seeing that the world wouldn't end if I let go of something that doesn't essentially matter. And it was getting very clear within kind of realizing that of the things that do matter to help me say yes and no at different times. Like during the school year, our mornings go better if I do go downstairs and I quickly pack my kids' snacks and like get their backpacks ready real quick, which I do, but I don't I don't clean anymore. And that's okay. And I've learned, wow, there's this whole world on the other side of me dictating what things should be like or listening to social media or societal pressures that it's okay if I don't. It's like similar to the way I want my business to be is unlike most financial services practices, I think people get self-worth from seeing the firm grow and becoming this billion-dollar plus firm. And it shows that you are a great business person because you're growing that way versus I look at it as I will never have more than 150 client households at one point in time. And I just want to work and help the people. That's what matters more to me. And that's what I define success as from a professional perspective is helping the people. So I've even shifted that perspective and I'm a very different financial services professional as well because it
Well, and
doesn't
I know
matter.
yeah, I know a lot of that drive comes from having had the life insurance when your dad died and realizing how
Mhm,
important that was and
mhm,
how just like what a panic-stricken place you were in. And without that, it just would have been a completely different
yeah,
situation. And so really understanding how important that is for people, I know has been a huge driver
mhm,
for not wanting anyone to have to be in that situation. You mentioned
100%.
something before too about self-worth, right? Like I know for me, and I never sadly had the you used to say that you rage clean. That's your that I
I
wish
still
that
do
I
that.
cleaned. I wish that I cleaned when I don't. It's much more functional, but I know that for me and for many of the women that I work with, the worth is tied to all kinds of things, right? Not just the
Mhm,
growing of the business, but how tidy the house is, or how happy everybody else is, or how well our kids are functioning, or all of those things. And you mentioned earlier that, you're aware that if you're feeling like you need to control something, there's anxiety underneath that. Can
mhm.
you speak a little bit more to that? Because I think so much of the time, all the time really, our emotions are driving our behaviors, and
Yeah,
we just don't know it or realize it.
yeah. Trying to think of a good example of it. It happens in the middle of the night. So my kids were really good sleepers as babies, and now they wake up with a bad dream in the middle of the night, and they come and get me, which is fine. I love that they they feel safe and want to do that. But if my brain turns on and I can't go back to sleep, it usually kicks on to I need to research something or just something's bugging me. And so then I look at it, I'm like, okay, why? And a lot of it has to do with my oldest and her ADHD issues and how are there different things we could be doing and supporting her with. I've been very interested in neuro rehab for her lately and the work there. So been doing a lot of research with that, but that's where I look at, okay, why? Oh, it's because we had a bad day. And oh, did I not display good co-regulation skills for her and in a capacity I'm putting the blame on her ADHD versus me saying, "Oh, you were a little bit, is it that time of the month? I don't know," or those types of things. It's caused me to always to flip the lens back on myself because at first I'll look at external things and then I flip the lens back on myself. If anything, my intuition has grown in just like extreme self-awareness. And there's not a lot of shame around it either, which has been very wonderful. It's just like, where can I be better to have that life that I want to live? You always had a phrase for it. It's like, and I forget what it is, where it's like, oh gosh, what did you call it? Where like there's no shame in how you're feeling. It just is like this is how it is, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a bit that's a big part of a lot of the work that I do, but, personally and professionally, right? Because there's such a and you went exactly where I was thinking of asking because I'm gonna say, how is the beating of the self up, going because that keeps us so stuck. It's such a cycle. We do something, we lose our temper or whatever, and then we just get this huge shame smackdown. And it's so self-defeating because
Mhm.
you can't change from that place. But what I
No.
hear you saying is that it's like you're looking at things and with a much more kind of even-handed, objective look. Like, okay, what happened here?
There's progress, not perfection. Does
Of
shame
course.
still happen? Absolutely. And there's no shame in the shame happening from time to times, but it is so much better than it was before, which is freeing. Being freed from shame, I think, is like the ultimate freedom someone can experience, truthfully.
Yeah, say more about that. Like, what was the shame like? What did you do to have it go away? Obviously, our parts don't go away completely. They're always there. So we're going to be navigating some of that.
Mhm.
But how do you manage it now? Like, what was it like
Um,
right now?
Now it's, it comes if like I snap at one of my kids. I'm like, "Oh, I didn't like how I handled that." Um, and I try and shut it off. So sometimes I'll do a visualization where like I'll see a stop sign and say, "We're not gonna go here," and then I do what I know I should. So you can take what made you shameful, such as snapping at your kids, and then you can go do the thing that makes you feel better. So I always apologize to my children and take accountability because I think that's important. Mommy shouldn't have spoken to you that way. And then I connect, but it allows me to stop the shame cycle and do the thing I should have done in the first place. If a client doesn't want to work with me, for example, because I'm not going to work with everyone, that has gone completely away to where I'm just not the right person for them, and that's okay. And so I don't view it as a loss or anything like that. I wish them all the best and I move on to the work that I need to be doing. So those are good, I guess, two examples of that. There's things that where you just have to let go, and there's things where you can pivot to correct the behavior so then you can learn and grow from it too. But sitting in the shame isn't going to allow you to do that
Yeah, it's
ultimately.
interesting that you mentioned the client too, because I do think that so many people feel we're just so self-centered as humans, like everything is about us. So it's like, oh, someone doesn't want to work with you. Oh, that must mean that I'm a horrible person. Like
Yeah.
just because of the way that we're structured and built, it rarely occurs to us to say, well, there's actually other factors involved than me,
Yeah.
me, 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 and whether
Yeah.
I'm the greatest or I'm the worst, right?
Hmm.
And that is a painful place that every single client meeting you go into, if you believe that not having that client means something about your value,
Yeah.
then think about your nervous system when you're going into that every single one. Your nervous system is all revved up because there's some huge meaning attached to it,
Yeah.
as opposed to, I'm going to show up and do my best and, see what happens, see if this is something that's meant to be or isn't meant to be.
Yeah, because I think, like, universe and energetically, like, you're going to work best with the people who, you align with personally on that level, and when it comes to people's money, like, that's like your health history. You wanna give that information to the right person, and so, if I didn't earn their trust, it's because energetically or, the way I might work with them, it doesn't align with who they are, and that's okay. Like, there's 8 billion people on this planet. Not everyone's gonna like me. I'm currently almost halfway through a book called The Courage to Be Disliked, and,
What a great title.
um, I highly recommend it for you. You'll love it. Um, it's it's from a philosophical perspective, but an alternative psychological to Freudian psychology with, Adler's theories, and I'm like, "Oh, this makes so much sense to me," like, and so it's like, yeah, to do things different and to live in who you are, and it's not from a place of selfishness, it's allow the people into your life who are going to be there with you energetically in a way that you support and grow together, and if it's not that way, that's okay, like, people can dislike you, people don't can come and go, and it's taken me a long time to learn that, but it helps you move through conflict or anything else a lot easier too.
Chuckling to myself with listening to you talk about energy, which,
I
when
know.
is like, "No such thing as energy, it's all only what I can see," and
I know. I know. I've become less, like, logical and more woo woo.
it's not so woo, it's actually science now, right? But
Yeah, it's true. That
yeah,
that's true.
or
I mean, and there's still things like that are hard for me to grasp within all of this. But then it's like, okay, what is this part telling me? Why is that hard to grasp? Or does it maybe not align with my values and who I am? Because I think within all of this, it's all going to come in and flow at the right times where you need to listen to certain things and figure different things out, and you're going to go through seasons and phases of life where you need more work, or you can like hold and grow like less steeply. I don't know, it's fascinating.
yeah, I mean, we're never given more than we can handle, right? And we're only
Yeah.
given what we can handle and only when we're ready to handle it. So,
Yeah.
which is kind of shocking to say because you've been through such an incredible amount, like in the 3D realm in your life since you were so
Yes.
young. But in terms of those spiritual lessons too, they come only when we're open and really ready, and they don't come sooner than that. And it can be frustrating sometimes, but
It can like, and as I mentioned, I have to get hit in the face pretty hard with big things to like change. And that's why post traumatic growth, I believe in it so much. It's been a hallmark of my life. But that's who I am, because they what is that saying? God only gives his hardest battles to his like strongest soldiers type of things. And I'm like, please stop trusting me so much that sometimes, but then I look at the lessons I've learned and how I've grown, and I'm like, okay, I needed that. I needed to hear that. And I think everyone's different. Some people can hear it subtly, and some people, like me, as a stubborn, hard headed individual, need to be, you know, smacked. And granted, losing my dad wasn't, I don't think that was necessarily part of the plan. That was part of his plan. Um, but it was more what I learned and how I moved afterwards. That was my lesson through it
yeah,
all.
yeah.
And it lives with me. Done a lot of therapy around it, but it has been a quite a journey. As I wrote in my chapter, I still don't know how I did it all and made it through, but I did, because that's kind of what I had to do. And now I don't have to do that, and I get to listen and
You get to
go
be.
through life calmly. Yeah, it's there's a calmness to my life now that I appreciate.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful chapter.
Thank
Tell us
you.
again the name of the book.
Financial Trendsetters 2. It's available on Amazon. Out now.
And what would you like to leave the audience with? What is it that you would like people to know sort of more than anything? If you could just convey one piece of wisdom, what would that be?
Let go of the expectation of what you think your life should look like, and just let it kind of flow, but listen to where your intuition is telling you you need to make a change. Like, listen to that quiet tug, but let go of the expectation surrounding it, so you can be taken in the paths and through the doors and that you should be in.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.